I'd like to say talk presenter and political commentator Peter Cardwell has joined us in the studio. Very, very lovely to see you. And basically, you've been watching PMQs, so we don't have to. A lot of people expecting, certainly including me, Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, would go with this new British-Indian trade deal. She's been very critical of it in terms of two-tier tax of British and Indian workers. Didn't mention it.
Maybe next week, because everyone thought last week she'd talk about net zero because that was the big story then. But this week she talked about net zero. So maybe next week she'll talk about the trade deal. It is weird. Well, it is weird. Although before we got to that, she talked a lot about the winter fuel allowance, which a lot of people are thinking Labour might do a U-turn on.
That's been denied by Labour. They're not going to do it. But there's polling suggesting that actually if they did, they would get a more favourable view from the public.
Yes, indeed. So the first exchange, which I'm not going to show you, was essentially her saying, will you reverse it? He said no, it's all down to the black hole, £22 billion. She says that's nonsense. And then she sort of picked it up in this clip I'm about to show you.
Let's have a watch and listen.
Mr. Speaker, the only black hole is the one the Prime Minister is digging. This issue affects some of the poorest and most vulnerable pensioners. His mayor in Doncaster says it's wrong. His First Minister in Wales says it's wrong. Even his own MPs are saying it's wrong. He's refused to listen to me on this. Will he at least listen to his own party and change course?
Mr. Speaker, let's spell this out. All the parties opposite would take this country back to where it was a few years ago. Broken public finances, interest rates through the roof, NHS waiting lists at all-time high. Because no other party in this House is prepared to say how they would put the finances straight. No other party is saying how they would invest in our NHS and public services. No other party is focused on the long-term prosperity of Britain. No one on this side, Mr. Speaker, is denying how big the challenges that we face, but no one on that side of the House is even prepared to take those challenges on.
Well, that's the exchange. I mean, there's never any love lost between those two, is there? The winter fuel allowance, though, lots of Labour MPs saying, look, it's basically their poll tax, the Labour Party. Yes,
and certainly it's led to a huge amount of consternation, but also, will Labour do a U-turn? They say no. Another thing that Labour have been talking about quite a lot is net zero. Kemi Badenoch talking about that, but actually, interestingly, a little bit later on in their exchanges, Keir Starmer threw back some words, not just of the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride on net zero, welcoming it, saying it's good, but also Kemi Badenoch in this clip.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it, on the net zero, is that she actually one of the few Tory MPs who did raise some concerns way back when, 2019, but been signed up to a government that had it in the manifesto.
Collective responsibility.
And again, and this is where they're up against, not just on the immigration issue, but also on the net zero issue and the wokedom against reform, which have just got a very clean track record on all of this. Well, let's have a watch and listen to that exchange on net zero then.
This is what she said. We believe that green trade and investment will be the future-proofing force that will help us create better tomorrow. And then she went on to say this, Mr. Speaker. It's long-term investment in nuclear and renewables that will reduce our dependencies on fossil fuels and keep down consumer costs. Now, she's got a reputation, apparently, for straight talking. She was right then, wasn't she?
Mr. Speaker, this approach to net zero is irrational. It's doomed to fail. Those aren't my words, they're Tony Blair's. He wants to throw words back, he should speak to him.
Bring him back.
But the truth is, the Prime Minister is on another planet. His net zero plans mean ever more expensive energy.
Net zero, Mr. Speaker, is an opportunity to be seized. The Leader of the Opposition, I don't think, is yet a climate denier, but she's a climate defeatist. She doesn't believe in Britain's ability to win the race for our economy, businesses and jobs. And they've never backed Britain. There's nothing patriotic about that.
That's very interesting. That's obviously something they've... he didn't come up with that on his own, did he? He wrote that. Net zero is an opportunity to be seized, and Badenoch is a climate defeatist.
Certainly, no. And listen, this I think is becoming quite a big dividing line between the Conservatives and Labour. Obviously,
I'm thrilled by this. I've spent years trying to tell them all to do this. But
of course, Starmer will just throw back the words as he did. But certainly, the wheels are coming off net zero. I think a lot of people are very, very annoyed about this, and actually, energy policy in general, not something you necessarily would have predicted would be a big thing, but has become a major issue.
Underlines everything in our economy.
Well, it's changing the idea of net zero is to change the whole economy, but really interestingly as well, the point has been made by Labour that if there's a big problem, they can fix it in a day. Look at Scunthorpe and the blast furnace. And this was brought up not just by Kemi Badenoch, but also by Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP.
Who we used to see a lot more of when
yes.
the SNP were the third biggest party.
That's
you
right.
Get 2 questions.
You only get him about once every 3 or 4 weeks now.
He's a great performer. Well, he won't come on the show. I've asked him, won't come on the show.
I've asked him in person as well.
Yeah. Likewise, yeah. Well, let's have a watch and listen to what he had to say.
Harbour Energy, the largest independent player in the North Sea, have announced that they are about to shed their workforce by 25%. That's 250 jobs in my constituency gone in the blink of his eye. And do you know who they blame, Mr. Speaker? They blame the policies of the Labour Party. So can I ask the Prime Minister, in fact, can I invite the Prime Minister to come to Aberdeen and explain to my constituents why he is willing to move heaven and earth to save jobs in Scunthorpe while destroying jobs in Scotland?
Mr. Speaker, nobody wants to see job losses, but I'd remind the right honourable member that before we came into office 10 months ago, the SNP government in Holyrood, alongside the Conservative government, did absolutely nothing for projects like Groundnut. Absolutely nothing.
I mean, it's a fair point from Stephen Flynn, is it not? In terms of the mood of the parties, this was the first, Peter Cardwell, the first PMQs since we've had those local elections. And the thing is, normally you'd have the Labour Party riding high or the Tory Party riding high, and if you're going against it. Both parties were utterly trounced by reform. Nigel Farage not getting a question. He got one last week. I bet he'd much prefer to have one this week.
Yes.
And of course, he was there, the swearing in of Sarah Pouchin.
Yeah.
Well, you know how to pronounce. Tell us why you know how to pronounce Sarah Pouchin's name.
I was on air on Saturday, and Sarah Pouchin rang in the number 03444991000 and said, it's not Pouchin, it's Pouchin. At which point my producer, quick as a flash, said, would you like to come on and do an interview? To which she said, I'm a bit busy, but some other time.
You're
bringing in.
Good to know you're listening.
She apparently heard it on her car radio because she was out and about.
On Mike's show today, and I have to say it was really impressive. Just she seems like a very sensible figure.
And I think Labour Party MPs in particular are spooked. You're right. I think both Conservative and Labour wanted it all to go away. A little bit later in PMQs, there were some Labour MPs talking about a few reform issues, saying, I'm doing this for my constituency. They're definitely spooked.
But Labour kind of been laughing, and so we've got this big majority, and it's the Tories who are hurt by reform. It's that party that's that split on that side. The reform are clearly taking from both sides, and they are now all speaking. Well, I wonder if they're going to do what they tried in Germany to do to the AfD, what they've done in France to do to the National Rally. Different parties, different policies, different leaders, obviously, but I wouldn't put it past anyone. I've never been a conspiracy theorist, but this existential threat to both parties, I think they're going to get worried.
Politics is changing in this country. There was a massive upset on Thursday, and today at PMQs, both the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister basically didn't mention it.
Yeah, just pretend it didn't
happen. It didn't happen.
Like the grooming gangs. Oh, no, dog whistle politics. Sorry, guys. Anyway, we'll just pretend this whole show didn't happen because Ian Collins here to take
I mean, the naivety of you two is breathtaking, frankly, and I'll tell you why. That is because the answer, as I'm sure you've touched on, is Boris Johnson. He's coming back. He's going to reinvigorate the Tory party.
That poll,
all of those people.
What these polls?
I'm not sure I have the strength.
Poll schmolls. I mean, I get it. It's curious, isn't it? But at what point?
Well, this is a more in common poll. Basically saying that the only Tory leader who could actually defeat reform in the polls apparently is Boris Johnson. Yeah, I mean,
really?
Until he was actually leader, at which point he wouldn't be.
Well, until he was rumbled, you could say as well.
I think we've already rumbled.
Interestingly, Kemi is more popular than Robert Jenrick, which I thought was interesting, according to that poll. So there's a lot of people saying Jenrick might be
Jenrick's the man who should take over.
Yeah, but
I know, it's going to be fascinating.
I think they're stuffed. I don't think there's a way around this.
Well, we had a caller earlier just basically saying it's the end of the Tory party, and he said you cut me down the middle and blue.
Yeah, I mean the Canadian comeback in Canada didn't happen.
Well, there is, never say never. Who knows? It's going to be fascinating. I know there's loads more you're going to be talking about, plenty more. Big thanks to Peter Cardwell, as always, for watching PMQ, so we don't have to. That's the big job you do for us. Thank you for all that analysis as well.